Welcome to Orygen Digital's MOST Platform training. This is Module 2, Onboarding in the Social Network. Today we'll be looking at the MOST onboarding process, the MOST community, and MOST therapists. We'll start with the MOST onboarding process. This is Ada's first episode of care for anxiety and depression. She's highly engaged with her face-to-face treatment, but struggles to cope with difficult emotions in between her sessions. She is in the process of joining MOST at her Headspace clinician's recommendation. Ada will access MOST through her Headspace account. This involves 7 steps. In step 1, the Headspace clinician shares a link to headspace.org.au with the young person so they can set up a Headspace account. In step 2, the young person sets up their Headspace account by entering personal information, including their age and which Headspace centre they are linked in with. In step 3, if the young person is eligible, so they're aged between 16 and 25 inclusive, and the Headspace centre they're with is live with MOST, then the young person will be able to see a MOST card in their Headspace account dashboard. In step 4, the young person clicks the MOST card and is asked to consent to sharing of their information with Orygen. In step 5, the young person is directed to the MOST website and logs in using their Headspace account credentials. In step 6, the young person completes MOST onboarding by agreeing to terms of use and answering questions about presenting problems and risk. If at this stage high risk is identified, then onboarding is stalled, information about crisis supports is provided, and the young person is contacted by the MOST clinical team. If not, then the young person proceeds to step 7, in which they can access and make use of MOST. Let's take a look at these steps in more detail. In step 1, a Headspace staff member, for instance, a MOST champion, access team clinician, or Medicare provider, will talk to the young person about MOST and the support it can offer. This conversation can happen at various points across a young person's Headspace care, for example, at intake, during waitlist, during Medicare sessions, or as a part of discharge planning. If eligible and interested, the young person is then provided with a link to set up a Headspace account and then can sign up to MOST via their Headspace account. In step 2, the young person will be required to enter personal information in order to set up a Headspace account, including their name, email address, date of birth, postcode, and their Headspace centre. It's really important at this stage that the young person is aware of the name of the Headspace centre they're linked to, so that when they're asked which Headspace do you visit, they select the correct response. They'll also be asked to create a password for their Headspace account at this point. In step 3, once a Headspace account has been created, the young person will have access to a dashboard displaying tools and supports. Based on the personal information entered previously, if the young person is eligible, so they're aged again 16 to 25 years inclusive, and MOST is live at their Headspace centre, they will be able to see the MOST card in their dashboard. This is what the MOST card will look like in the Headspace account dashboard. In step 4, when the young person clicks the MOST card, they will be asked to provide consent for Headspace to transfer personal information to Orygen. If the young person does not agree at this stage to this, they cannot proceed to MOST. In step 5, the young person is then redirected to the MOST website at www.headspace.most.org.au and will be able to log in using the email and password linked to their Headspace account. In step 6, the young person is then required to accept the MOST terms of use in order to access MOST. And these set out key expectations that young people should have for the service, including providing a background to MOST, the service availability and cost, and use of private information. It's been written in a way that's really clear and concise for young people. Step 6 continues with the young person then completing a series of questions about what support they need. They'll be allocated to a therapeutic journey based on these responses. As an example of these questions, a young person might be asked to rate the extent to which they are feeling down, depressed or hopeless, feeling anxious, nervous or on edge, or experiencing conflict with friends or family. Next, the young person will be asked to respond to several questions assessing their level of risk. If high risk is identified, then onboarding will terminate. Crisis resources, which you can see here on the right of your screen, are offered, and the most clinical team will provide follow-up. If high risk is not identified, then onboarding simply continues. Next, the young person will complete a series of questions about their interests and strengths, which are then displayed on their MOST profile for other young people to see. They will be asked to create a username, as well as the option to add a profile picture at this stage. These are some snapshots from the platform. This is an example of the list of interests that young people can choose from, and they can enter their own interests here as well. This is a screenshot of the results of their selected interests, which other young people on the site can see. Here we have an example item from the strengths questionnaire that young people respond to during the onboarding process. And this is a list of the young person's top 5 strengths as a result of the responses they made to the strengths questionnaire. Other young people, clinicians, peer workers, and career consultants can see both the strengths and the interests that young people have selected. In step 7, once the young person has completed these questions, they will be able to access MOST. They'll be asked if they want to post in the MOST community and shown their allocated therapeutic journey. On the left of the screen is the welcome to MOST message that young people will see. And on the right of screen is an example of a therapeutic journey. For this young person, based on their responses to the onboarding questions, they've been allocated to the Feeling Down therapeutic journey. Let's take a look at the MOST community. The MOST community is a social network that is a young person only space that's moderated by youth peer workers. Young people and peer workers can post text, videos, and GIFs onto the community newsfeed. It's the only space on the platform where young people can talk and communicate to each other. The young person is also given a summary of what the therapist team and the peer work team do on MOST in this community. On the right of the screen is a screenshot of what the MOST community page will look like. As soon as the young person clicks on the community, they're prompted to read the community guide. These are some snippets from the community guide, which provides a bit of an overview of the community, what MOST is a place for, and a bit of a prompt for young people to post and engage in the community page. In terms of safety, the MOST platform has algorithms that flag potentially risky or offensive text, which then the MOST clinical team reviews on a regular basis. For example, this user has posted content that involves suicidal words. This is automatically identified and blocked by these systems algorithms, and no one can see that other than the MOST clinical team. The MOST clinical team is automatically notified and who will then review this content. Once reviewed by the MOST clinical team, the young person is contacted and the matter is resolved. If, for instance, it was a false positive, the text is then released for viewing by all on the platform. Where there is potential risk, risk protocols are followed by the MOST clinical team. And where text is considered offensive, the young person is contacted and this is discussed. If one or more other young people report content on the platform, it will be removed from public viewing and reviewed by the MOST clinical team as part of their regular safety checks. Another cool feature of the community is the use of hashtags so that users can identify posts that are most useful and relevant to them. The community includes some advice on the use of hashtags, particularly those that may promote positive and therapeutically beneficial interactions on the community. For example, this hashtag advice please can be used if a young person's struggling and wants some support from the community. And therapists will sometimes chip in here if they think there's some therapy that might help. Another cool feature of the MOST community is the venting option. When posting, young people can choose to select "I'm just venting," which limits the visibility of their post to other young people and eases swearing restrictions. Other young people can then decide whether or not they want to view a vent post by clicking the show button. Let's take a look at the MOST therapist. Each young person is allocated to a MOST therapist for their time on the platform. This provides important continuity of care for young people accessing MOST. Once onboarding is complete, a MOST therapist will message the young person to organise a welcome phone call to check in with them, orient them to the different supports and features of the platform, and encourage them to get started on their therapy journey. The MOST therapist will continue to check in with the young person via regular direct messaging on the MOST platform, as well as via phone calls. The MOST therapist will aim to keep the young person engaged in MOST and will be an important point of contact for headspace clinicians who might also be working with the young person in face-to-face sessions. Thanks for your time.